It's really hard to keep up with all these conference moves and reshuffles. It's like keeping up with the Kardashians. Okay, sorry, that was a bad joke. Let's just get into it. So conference realignment is not a new phenomenon. I mean, in the BCS era, which was 16 seasons, 78 teams moved conferences, and actually 14 programs went from FCS, lower division, to the FBS, the higher division. But it seems to me, more than ever before, that we're kind of headed towards the super conferences.
What does that mean?
And these moves, obviously, they're not just for competition. This isn't just so that USC and Ohio State can play every year. This is, like most stuff in this world, about the money.
Show me the money!
These conferences are competing for the money that is to be made with live sports. I'm sure, obviously, that you're aware that live sports are the thing that is driving television. Live sports accounted for 95 of the top 100 most watched TV shows last year. And with Texas and Oklahoma jetting for the SEC, UCLA, USC headed to the Big Ten, it seems like those two conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten, are really separating themselves from the rest. These two are Coke versus Pepsi. They're Apple versus Microsoft. They're Xbox versus PlayStation. The two biggest, baddest companies. These are the big dogs, and everyone else just kind of have to fight it out. And of course, there is a reason that it's these programs, USC, UCLA, Texas, Oklahoma, that are moving conferences and not Arizona, TCU, fill in the blank of average programs.
You're just not good enough.
These schools were the moneymakers in their conferences. In the Big 12, Texas had their own network.
Longhorn Network is the ultimate home for University of Texas sports and #1 destination for UT fans.
And USC drove the Pac-12. USC, UCLA basketball, those are the programs that drove the Pac-12. And these are the schools that have the assets on the field. These are the ones that have the asset programs. USC, Oklahoma football, Texas, the brand of Texas football, their basketball team, their baseball team. UCLA obviously is one of the most popular basketball programs in the country. And we're moving to a time where it feels like if you're not competing on the field, you're going to just be trying to compete for a spot at the table. And the way that these conferences work is if the Pac-12, they get a TV deal. Now, every institution in that deal has to share the revenue from that TV deal. But we know that USC and Oregon are really the ones that are driving the Pac-12 in terms of ratings and revenue. This is like going to a kid's birthday party. The grown-ups have their own table. They're talking about mortgages, 401ks, the stock market, whatever grown-ups, they're talking about at a kid's birthday party. And then the kids, they're kind of clumsy and walking over themselves and just little humans. They're not quite to the spot of the grown-ups. And every so often they come and kind of tug at your shorts and ask for money.
Mom, can I have some money?
The grown-ups are Texas, Michigan, Ohio State, LSU, Alabama, and they're sitting at the grown-ups table talking about TV deals and revenue sharing. And then the kids, there's Rutgers, Maryland, Arizona State, who ever so often goes up to the grown-ups table and says, hey, can we have some money for our programs? And obviously what these schools don't want to do is they don't want to be the ones that are driving revenue and have to share it with others. That's why Notre Dame has historically been independent. NBC's paying them like $15 million, and they get all of it. They don't have to share it with any other schools. Northwestern State, they don't have to do that. So it seems kind of inevitable that this is where college football is going. And I don't want to speak about the others because I am concerned about USC having to, women's basketball having to travel to the Big Ten every week. I am a little concerned about that, and we'll see what happens. But in terms of football, which is the money maker, the big driver in this country, and where all of these TV rights and revenue is coming from, I think we're probably going to have to see a 3-tier system with this conference realignment. Tier 1, you have your top 30, 40 programs. Your Clemson's, Alabama's, LSU, Texas A&M, USC's, the top programs. And then you have a tier 2, which are the teams that are really good, the programs that are good, and it's a big-time program, but it's not as big. Your TCU's, your Texas Tech's, Washington, those kinds of programs. And then in tier 3, you have your FCS, or your lower division FCS. You have, Sam Houston State, you have Stephen F. Austin or San Diego State, North Dakota State, those sorts of. And I feel like we're kind of already getting to this point. I mean, there are already rumors that Clemson, Florida State, Notre Dame, all of these schools are kind of in talks with either the SEC or the Big Ten to get into their conferences. And so maybe it is something like soccer in your Premier League, where you have relegation, where if you lose out of the Tier 1, you move to Tier 2, and the Tier 2 team that wins that. But it feels kind of inevitable that we're moving into a weird and chaotic system with the SEC and the Big Ten really driving this puppy.